Yes, indeed. Welcome into another episode of Rip N Riff here on the Rip N Riff YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook network. I am at Pucking Thoughts, Adam Bernard, and the man to my right is Mr. Jared Moore. Jared, how are we doing on this extremely warm day by me?
Yeah, it's a warm day over here in New York as well. We're at that point of the spring where we just stopped. We skipped past spring. Now it's summer. It's 85 degrees outside. Central air is on, which is always nice, and it's always a little bit sad as well because once you step outside of the house, you're going to be ball soup.
Yeah, I've always said, and I haven't lived in New York in a while, but when I was there, like you got like maybe 2 weeks of spring and then 2 weeks of fall, and then the rest of the year was just split up between summer and winter pretty much. And sorry, that spring period's already gone for you.
Yeah, it is what it is, but it's sort of what I've come to expect living in this area of the country for as long as I have. So, how are you today?
I'm doing just great. I mean, we got the Eastern Conference Finals and the NHL kicking off here in just about 2 hours. Of course, my Rangers taking on the Panthers. Tomorrow night, we got Stars Oilers. Going to be ripping some hockey packs later and talking about those series and around the NHL. Before we get to the pack ripping lineup, though, a little bit of breaking news before we took the stage here. Your Devils, Sheldon Keefe, the next head coach, 4-year deal. Got to be happy about that.
Yeah, you obviously turned me on to the news. I wasn't aware of it when I had logged on here, and I think it's a good hire. I think he did a good job of getting Leafs teams that don't really have a ton of talent defensively actually play good defense and actually get decent goaltending, even though they don't really have a goaltender. So in that respect, but yeah, you're going to be going to a Devils team that probably has more talent collectively on their blue line than Toronto does, debatably, and certainly will in a couple of years once like Luke Hughes and Simone Nemec develop, and they might wind up going out this summer and trading for a goaltender. It's better than anybody Toronto's had the last few years. So I'm not really concerned about like the playoff failures in Toronto. Not because like I'm absolving him of any blame. I'm sure he's as responsible as any party there. But when you have a top heavy roster like that and the GM has paid 5 guys on the team half the salary cap, you're a little bit hamstrung with what you're trying to do with the roster. So I think he probably did the best job he could there in what is the toughest hockey and media market in the country. And now he's going to be going to a market where he can go to the shop right in Parsippany and nobody's going to bother him.
He can pick his fruit out without being judged that he picked a piece that was a little too ripe or not ripe enough based on what other people saw when he was picking out an avocado, we'll say. I mean, everybody's got their tricks for that. But I to your point, though, just him getting out of that Toronto fishbowl and going to a team that has 1 to 2 beat writers versus 16 to 18 people there every day or whatever it is, that alone is, I think, going to make him, not to say a better coach, but he's certainly going to come to the office every day with maybe 5 to 10% less stress on his plate. Just that factor alone.
Yeah, especially since most of the media that covers the Devils is team employed media. So they're not gonna, I say this with all due respect to like the Amanda Steins of the world, they're not gonna ask a tough question.
And as a Ranger fan, I don't like seeing a good hire by a rival, and that's a good hire by a rival. So Devils, the team, will have to look out for next year. A little bit better coaching, and then we'll see what happens with Keefe. Of course, we get the 2 games tonight. But before we get to any of that stuff, what are we ripping today? I alluded to that earlier. I've got a pack of 2021-2022 Upper Deck MVP hockey. It's a 28-card hanger pack, so we'll definitely get our money's worth out of that and some good conversation there. I'm also bringing, we got the Timberwolves and the Mavericks kicking off tonight. Celtics and Pacers kicked off their conference final last night, so I got some 91-92 Skybox. We had fun with this pack when Corey Parson was on. And I figure let's go back to the well here. And if this pack is bad, I do have a backup pack. So I am prepared.
Very nice. I'm going old school baseball, 1992 Fleer baseball trading cards. Very excited about these. I bought a bunch of old baseball card packs that I've been slowly going through on this show. And I want to keep putting on the back burner because, we get a guest on who wants to do a different sport or, we want to cover a different angle that particular week. But I got so many baseball cards right now. It's the heart of baseball season. I feel like even though a lot of these players are well, all these players are going to be since long retired, since these are 1992 cards. But very excited to go through those.
I wonder who the last active player is from that 92 Fleer set. I have to like really do some digging on that. Who was the last one standing from that year? But yeah,
I'm sure once we go through, we could figure out who the last active player was. So like, if I pull a Barry Bonds, it's probably him. Or, if I pull Ken Griffey Jr., it's probably him.
There you go. Good call on that. Now, before we get pack ripping here, we always like to get some stuff off our chest in a segment called It's time to kick things off on Rip N Riff with
my Rip N Rant.
Thanks, Dave. Would certainly help if I hit the right file that first time. So hey, it happens.
Yeah, that would help, and that'll probably put a little bit of a damper on where I was going to go with the Rip and Rant because
I didn't even think about that.
I don't know if anyone noticed the sports Emmys were last night. I guess the sports Emmys are a thing. I'm not really one to pay attention to industry awards, and after Adam had the misclick there with the Open, I can understand why our nomination was lost in the mail. I mean, I don't know where else you can get riveting discussion like should Will Levis do a partnership with Levi Jeans than Rip and Rant. But, I don't see Noah Eagle breaking that down.
And here's the thing: I still stand by that. That is just a genius marketing, pair there and partnership. They got to do it at some point.
Yeah, well, you would think, and I guess if Chris Collinsworth says it, it's something that might come to fruition. But little old me on this dopey show that we do on the internet, I guess they couldn't be bothered. And yeah, I mean, I don't even know what I would do if we were nominated for a sports Emmy, because it would just be awkward because you'd have to fly all the way to New York to go to it. I'd have to wear a suit, which I really don't want to do. So I'd probably be like, look, I'm not. I'll go to your little award show. I'm not wearing a suit. I'm showing up, dressed. I'm gonna wear a black T-shirt. I'm gonna wear sweatpants. I'm gonna wear a baseball cap. And if you have an award for me, I'd be more than happy to go up onto the stage and accept it from Sierra Santos of MLB Network. But unless you don't, then don't bother me.
I mean, listen, I know the nominations were in already, but I mean, last week we made it scientific on here. We sit, with a stuck pack, put it in rice, see if it works like a cell phone. You're not getting that anywhere else. You're not getting that on ESPN.
No, of course not. This is the smartest dumb show on the internet.
You know what? I think we got our new slogan there. I like it. My snafu aside, I still think we're worthy of a sports Emmy, even though we're being those people that like, oh, we don't care about awards. It's just a meaningless acknowledgement. But hey, if you want to give us one, we're more than
right
happy.
There on the shelf. I'll clear all that stuff off that shelf right there. I'll put the sports Emmy up there. It'll be right next to Homer Simpson's burping trophy that he had to give to the critic.
Oh, that was a good episode. I mean, starting lineup studio audience, we can take one less person in there every week and pop a nice sports Emmy in there. Although I believe one guy that got it that absolutely deserves it is Ernie Johnson. I think he got like sports personality of the year. I mean, and we can talk about this and next year. There's 1 year left of Inside the NBA, which is arguably, but not really.
It sucks.
It's the best pre halftime post. It just the chemistry and all that, the way he keeps it rolling, and it's just I'm not even a big basketball fan, and that show will have me cracking up and rolling around on the floor.
It's the best studio show in sports broadcasting history. And
it's one of those where it's like, if other shows would agree with that, even its competitors would be like, yeah, and like good for when the NHL went to TNT with Turner Sports to try and kind of recreate that vibe with their studio crew. Obviously, you're never nobody's touching that level. But the fact that they even try to emulate that, I like that style of it. It's more fun to watch,
I mean, where else can you have one of the top NBA analysts in the country play a game called Who He Played For and try to guess what team Obi Toppin plays for in 2024? And it works, and it's a brilliant segment.
I mean it's like Charles Barkley the other night when they were interviewing Anthony Edwards after they beat the Nuggets in Game 7. Vince Carter was on the panel. He asks a basketball-related question. Kenny the Jet Smith asks a basketball-related question. Barkley gets up there. Hey, Anthony, I haven't been to Minnesota in like 20 years. You got restaurant recommendations? Like, you're not getting that anywhere else. You know what I mean?
And that's really all Chuck cares about, and I respect the hell out of it.
Good for him. So yeah, we did not get our sports Emmy, but certainly Ernie Johnson got deserved one, and he got one. So kudos to him. So yeah, we'll take those awards. We'll
Chuck should go to the steakhouse that we went to at Super Bowl. You weren't there for that Super Bowl, but it was just Google David Deal and Christopher Mad Dog Russo Minneapolis Steakhouse, and you'll know what I'm talking about.
have to look that up later on. So yeah, I've never actually been to Minnesota. I haven't been to the state of Minnesota. It's one I've been to maybe about 30 states, but that's one I have not made it to. I do want to get to a Minnesota Wild game there in St. Paul, though. Now, speaking of hockey, my Rip and Rant today is going to be short and sweet. You know, like we said, Rangers Panthers going to drop the puck here in a couple hours, and it's a really evenly matched series. You know, it could really go either way. All I want is a competitive series. That's all I want. Obviously, I want the Rangers to win, but just let the series live up to the hype. Give us that. The Stanley Cup playoffs so far, I'll say, have been mediocre. They've been good. It's not been an all-time like. This is the round where I want epic series. I want every game being dramatic. This is where it needs to happen. That's all I want. Just give me good, entertaining 6-7 game series between these two teams. Obviously, I have a preference of who I want to come out on top here, but I just want to be entertained every night. I don't want any blowout games. I don't want anything that's boring. Just give me good hockey, the hockey that, you know, the pedigree of these teams should live up to.
Well, the good news is I think you're going to get that with both series. I think both these series are going at least 6 games. Wouldn't be surprised if they both wind up going 7. I'm not going to shit on the Rangers parade. So you know, just out of respect for our friendship here. I mean, obviously I'm rooting for Florida, but I'm not going to crap on the Rangers there in that respect. And as far as the other series goes, I mean, I would lean towards Dallas. I think, you know, obviously they have the edge in net. I mean, Edmonton has the best player in the world with McDavid, and obviously he's been sensational in these playoffs. But, you know, this Dallas team just, you know, I mean, first going through Vegas and then going through Colorado, and it almost feels like, you know, sometimes you go in these playoff runs, and these guys who have been there a billion times before in the past, it just feels like their time. Like it just feels like between like Joe Pavelski and like
Sagan,
Ben, who's been there forever, Sagan, Pete DeBoer, who's coached a billion teams this deep into the playoffs. Like it feels like it's their time.
And that, you know, Miro Heiskanen is playing border, like, you know, Conn Smythe-worthy campaign here. Jake Ottinger's doing very well in that. Like, Chris Tanev was one of the best acquisitions at the deadline, and it's still proving that way. They're getting every bit out of him. So yeah, Dallas definitely has that. But I mean, you can make the same argument for Florida too. They kind of got close last year. They, you know, picked up where they left off this year. They were one of the best teams in the league, wire to wire. So yeah, Florida and Dallas both have those kind of vibes to them. So
yeah, and Ekblad's actually, I don't want to say 100% because nobody's 100% this time of year, but Ekblad can actually, you know, do stuff on the ice this time of year. So as opposed to last year when he was basically a shell of himself. So excited to watch both series.
Talking hockey anyway, you want to just get Rip into this pack right here?
Let's get right to it.
Get to it. All right. Almost had to go to the pocket knife, but did not need to do that. Never want to do that. Never want to have to do that here. All right, so let's put that down. Let's get the West Coast Rip Cam up on the screen.
28 cards in size, so you certainly got your money's worth with this pack.
I sure did, and I kind of did that on purpose so we could have a nice little conversation here. Now, a team that just got eliminated from the playoffs, but due to no fault of this man, Mikko Rantanen, you can make the argument is probably the best right wing in the game, if not top 3.
Yeah, he's certainly in that conversation. You'd say what, him and Pasternak's a right wing as well.
Pasternak,
right? So,
yeah, he's up there. I mean, those guys just go out and consistently produce every year and just give you everything that you expect and more. And you know, we talked about it on Total Hockey Now, but you know, we didn't really get to see the full extent of that Dallas Colorado series because the second Nichushkin got his whole deal, that series went off the rail for the Avalanche. That was it.
Yeah, he's a difference maker. He was their best player in the playoffs leading up to that suspension. So, and Colorado is going to be a really interesting team this offseason because they have a lot of money. They're paying a lot of guys a lot of money between McKinnon and McCarr and Tays and Niskanen's on the book for 6.5, and Landeskog's going to try to come back. So they probably need to upgrade in net. Georgiev wasn't great, but he wasn't awful, but he wasn't great either. And I feel like you need better than just average in the playoffs to be a legitimate Cup championship team. Just because it raises the floor and raises the margin of error for everything you're trying to do. So they're going to be an interesting team to watch this summer.
I got to say, this is a pretty loaded pack here. We got some good ones in here. We got Jack Eichel, who won't be winning the Cup this year, but he did last year.
He did last year. Vegas is going to be another one of those teams. They got 1 billion free agents. They're going to have to prioritize Jonathan Marchessault, most likely. But, they have Chandler Stevenson and Anthony Mantha, and some of their bottom 6 guys are free agents too, like Michael Amadio. What's his face? Will Carrier, who's a original Golden Knight. So
original misfit.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do as well to try to keep as much of the band together as possible.
Alex Pietrangelo there. Speaking of Golden Knights, let's stay with the defenseman here for a minute. Brent Burns, he definitely falls into that class of like guys that you would be happy to see get a ring or due for one.
Yeah, I'm starting to think it might not happen for him, just because like he's 38 now. Carolina, I mean they've been one of the best teams in the Metro the last 2 years, and the first they've been able to get to the third round. I mean, I don't want to say they weren't competitive against the Rangers. I mean, it was a 6-game series, but in like games 2 and 3, both went to overtime. Could have gone either way, but it sort of feels like they've kind of reached like the apex of where they're going to be with this iteration of that group. So
there's definitely a few names there that they got to figure out what they're doing for sure. So yeah, the Carolina could look a little bit different next year. Now, we got a Devil here, and we see him on the ESPN broadcast, Mr. PK Subban.
Yeah, PK has been really good on these broadcasts. He's done a really nice job transitioning into the media in his post-playing career. I feel like he could probably still go a little bit, but I mean, I can understand that he, after making $9 million a year, I can understand not wanting to be like a $1 million defenseman, which is basically what he was at the very end for the Devils. And he wasn't that old when he walked away. He was only like 31, 32. So,
I mean, I know they were joking around, but when they do those cut-in videos going to break to show the studio, and Messier's walking around with the cup, and he's like, "Come on, PK, touch it." And PK's like, "No, like I can still win it. Maybe a team could assign me." Blah, blah, blah. So fun back and forth. I do enjoy that when you watch Messier and Subban. There are times where Messier seems genuinely entertained by what Subban's saying and doing and is having a great time. And then there are times where Messier's like, man, if I could just get away with reaching over and strangling him, I would.
Oh, there's definitely old school, new school feel with that. Yeah, Messier is your classic 200 hockey man guy. He's been in the game forever, for obviously as a player and now as a broadcaster. And Subban's sort of that new age guy where, he'll wear like the flamboyant suits and talk about, the style that these guys have on and off the ice, and talk about swagger and all the stuff that doesn't actually matter. So,
and Mess wants to talk defensive zone draws. That's what that is right there. That's what he wants to get into. Now, speaking of the Rangers, Blake Wheeler, he is now available for this series, although I don't think he'll be addressing it unless there's an injury, but he is available. And also a guy they acquired at the trade deadline, Jack Roslovic, who's been up and down, but I think, pretty good overall with them on that top line.
Yeah, I feel like the Rangers' deadline pickups have been mostly fine for the most part. So
now a guy that's gonna be on the move, and we talked about potential destinations on yesterday's Total Hockey Now. Mitch Marner, he is probably as good as he can wrap his lease up wherever he's staying right now.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and either on Rip N Riff or Total Hockey Now. I forget which show, but he's entering his walk year. He's got a full no move clause. Any team that trades for him is going to have to hand him a brand new contract that's going to be paying with a number that starts with a 10, and probably more than that, considering he's been making 11 or whatever he's been making. So, what team is out there that has that kind of cap space and has those type of assets where they can turn around and offer him to the Toronto Maple Leafs for whatever, because I'm not sure who it is. Like I know people were speculating yesterday about Nashville because they made the trade sending Ryan McDonough back to Tampa Bay, so that freed up a bunch of cap space as well. And they could use a little more offensive firepower.
Sure.
But I don't know that Marner is. I don't know that he's necessarily like a difference making type of player. I guess is a playway point. Like he's very good at what he does, but I like is he driving play, or is he really more of like a passenger with some of the other top guys that Toronto has? I don't know the answer to that question. And also, it was not a good look when he was basically crying and sulking on the bench during that one playoff loss, and they basically told him grow the hell up.
Yeah, it's not a good look when you have, Austin Matthews and William Nylander, who are your peers in both playing ability and age, are basically telling you, shut the F up and get it together. This ain't junior anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not a good look. So
yeah, that's not anytime that they have to that the camera's catching you being told to man up in the middle of the game, it's not good.
And that's not going to fly with Craig Berube either. That's the other part of this too. With him coming to town, there is no way he's going to tolerate a player like Marner. So we'll see where he goes, whether that's a Utah because they want to bring in a big name. Nashville.
They just need more flexibility too. Like they need to get that 11 million off just to turn that into like 2 or 3 players who could help. Because you could take that 11 million, you could get you can get a goalie, you can get a top 4 defenseman, and you could probably have enough left over for like a third line winger who's not totally washed. So you could turn that into several pieces. Like you're not going to get a Mitch Marner for it, but you should be able to get somebody that's pretty good. Plus like whatever draft picks you get to offset it, I guess.
Speaking of guys who are leaving or have left Toronto, Zach Hyman, and the grass was definitely greener for him in Alberta.
Yeah, I'm surprised he has really raised his game to another level. I mean, he's the perfect like wingman to play with Connor McDavid. So, credit to him.
Got Brian Rust from the Penguins there. Samuel Girard, kind of a underrated player on the Avalanche blue line. They got so much depth there, but I mean, he and obviously Cale Makar, but he's a very.
That's one of those guys. The Avalanche might have to move out just to create enough payroll flexibility to keep other guys,
and they could still get a decent return on him. Let's see here, Timo Meier, who really came on late for the Devils this year. Got to be excited about him for 2024-25.
Yeah, he was the walking wounded this year. It turned out he was playing with both of his knees. He was dealing with MCL sprains, not one, both, which would explain the first half of the season when he could barely move. He needed shoulder surgery at the end of the year, and he was dealing with something else on top of that. I don't know if it was like an oblique or abdominal injury or something, but yeah, he's a guy who just took a pounding this year, and like he sat out for however many games he needed to sit out, and then he came back, looked like a shell of himself, and then like the second half of the season, like once he was healthy, and lo and behold, once they fired Lindy Ruff and they put Timo Meier on the top power play unit, and they put him as a net front presence, and what a shock! He's a big body who could use his body to create space to get his shot off.
It's not like he didn't do that in San Jose for all those years either. Why wouldn't you use a guy in a role he's excelled at in the past? I don't know.
Right. Well, the Devils were not well coached the last few years, which is part of the reason why they made a coaching change.
But yeah, I mean, Timo Meier next year. I mean, you mentioned everything he was playing with, and then you're talking about transitioning to a new team for the first time in your career across the other end of the continent. Like you factor all that into next year will be a much better year for Timo. It'll be better Timo times next year. Andrei Kopitar, who still keeps going, but again, you got to wonder how long the Kings can have Kopitar and Doughty as their 2 best players.
Yeah, and it's not exactly ideal that Pierre-Luc Dubois, the first year of that contract, hasn't looked great either, because part of the reason why you go out and you trade for Pierre-Luc Dubois is to take sort of some of that off of Kopitar's plate as he gets older. So, I mean, they said they're not going to buy him out. I understand why that was a talking point a couple weeks ago, but they're going to have to figure out what they're doing with their center depth, because he's not getting any younger. He's 37, 38 years old. I don't know how many more runs the Kings realistically have in them. And for a team that went through as long a rebuild as they did, they have not gotten a ton through their farm system where, to show for it. A lot of those guys, like, they either turned out to be busts or they traded them.
We talk about, like you said, that was an offseason acquisition for Pierre-Luc Dubois. Like Timo Meier underachieved, but then it's like, okay, he's got reasons for why things didn't work out for 80% of the season for him. But what was PLD's excuse? Like at some point, like he wanted to go. They brought him there to be a second line center, and he ended up being a third line center at best half the time.
He spent too much time on Manhattan Beach in his off days.
I mean, you could do worse. We got Tristan Jarry there and Evgeny Malkin, back-to-back Penguins. Curious to see what happens with them next year. If they really, we thought this year was going to be like a one last kick at the can kind of year, and that did not go well at all. See if they can do anything next year.
The Penguins' competitive window, in terms of winning Stanley Cup championships, it's over. They have no window. This is the end of their run. Crosby and Malkin and Letang are all in their mid to late 30s now. Erik Karlsson's 33 years old, and like as great of an offensive force he is not a good defensive defenseman. Tristan Jarry's okay in net, but he's not on the level of like Shesterkin or a Vasilevsky or Connor Hellebuck or whatnot, and that's assuming when he's healthy, which it seems like he's never healthy. Just all those years of trading draft picks has caught up to the Penguins, where they don't really have the farm system. The guys coming up through the farm system to replenish and sort of reinforce what they have. They don't have their first round pick this year because it's going to the Sharks in the Karlsson trade, and that's a top 15 pick. Like they could use that pick, even though that player is not going to help them this year. Like they're going to need that guy in like 3 years, and they don't have it available. So they're done.
Sharks are expected to go with a D-man with that pick, for the record.
Yeah, they've missed the playoffs 2 years in a row now, and like, who would you bet next year? And I'm not asking this question just because I'm a Devils fan, but like, who would you bet on like to make the playoffs next year? The Devils or the Penguins? Like the Devils. It's not even close.
I mean, the Capitals, and we'll see what happens with Philly next year, because they were a legitimate, decent team, and then the whole wheels came off with the Carter Hart thing. So we'll see what happens with them next year when they don't have that, derailing their season. But yeah, the Devils would be the team.
And even that, like Washington made the playoffs, but like Washington made the playoffs with a minus 40 goal differential. And how much of what Washington did was smoke and mirrors with what Charlie Lindgren did in that. Like the Islanders made the playoffs, but they made the playoffs because they lost 20 games in overtime. I'm not crapping on the Islanders because they lost 20 games in overtime. That's part of the system. It's part of the rules, and part of being a playoff team is being able to navigate those games to get to the overtime, to get those extra points. But I mean, it's another team where all their skaters are in their mid 30s. It's just not sustainable.
No, I think you're right, though. If the championship window is closed, that's not to say that they couldn't maybe sneak into the playoffs last year. I mean, this year, if the Islanders and Capitals can get in, anything's possible.
But that's the upside for these teams, is they could sneak into the playoffs. And how'd that go for them? Like the Capitals got swept. The Islanders lost in 5 to Carolina.
Exactly. So it's, and I know it's Crosby and Malkin and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, at a certain point, it's, they're overmatched and time has passed them by. We got David Perron there, pictured with the Blues. Here's Andrei Svechnikov for the Hurricanes. There's a big player for them, and we'll see what the team looks like next year. But Svechnikov certainly a big player for them.
Yeah, hopefully for him, as he gets further and further removed from that torn ACL, he sort of gets his legs back under him.
Exactly. Now we go to Vancouver. We got Nils Höglander, who was bottom liner that had some of an impact on that series with the Edmonton Oilers, and then Filip Hronek now with the Canucks, but pictured there with the Red Wings.
Very, very interesting coincidence that you went with the current Canuck and then the now the Canuck, 2 cards in a row there. I guess that was just a coincidence of how they line up in this pack.
Yeah. But Hronek was a good addition for them. He filled out that top pairing next to Quinn Hughes. It's a perfect fit there. I mean, he definitely was on a torrid pace with assists to start the year and cooled off. But
isn't that another guy who needs a contract for this year? I feel like Vancouver's window is not going to be open for very long, with just like some of the guys they have in their contract.
I think the window will stay open because they've established themselves as a well-coached team that still almost beat Edmonton, even with the injuries they were dealing with. Casey DeSmith wasn't, he got it done on some occasions for them, but they, Shilovs is clearly a better number 2 option for Demko. We'll see what happens with Demko. I mean,
Heroic's an RFA with arbitration rights, so like he's gonna be getting $5 or $6 million a year most likely.
I was a little disappointed that and all the best in Brock Besser's recovery from the blood clot that they discovered, but to lose your best player right before Game 7, I mean, I would like to have seen that game played with Besser in the lineup and see how it would have gone differently for them.
Yeah, it's a bummer. They fell behind in quick little 3-0 hole through a couple periods. It was able to get it within one, but it's unfortunately as close as they could get.
Yeah, we got Brock Nelson here with the Islanders. Let's see what else we got. Jonathan,
do you think Brock Nelson and Brock Besser get together for lunch when they're in New York or Vancouver?
I mean, we'd have to ask Mike Francesa, but yeah, I would think so. See, you got Brock Nelson, Brock Besser, maybe Brock Osweiler, shows up for a drink. Who knows?
Nice. He texts Brock Purdy, see if he's too big time now to show up, and then you got Brock Lesnar showing up with like his big old tractor from his farm in the middle of wherever he lives in Canada. He lives somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Canada on a farm.
And they also have a cover band called Brock Rock.
Nice. Is Brock Rock the opening act on Dude Jam?
Yeah, of course. I mean, if we can get him, I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to do it in the summer, so that way there's no hockey games going on. We got Jonathan Huberdeau, who has been a massive man. You talk about a guy that was sad to leave Florida. First, I mean, you go from Florida, West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale area. Now you're in Calgary, and you are, let's just say, your career is kind of falling off. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that man misses Florida. It's got to be tough for him to watch hockey this time of the year.
I will say this about Jonathan Huberdeau: right place, right time, and I say that in the respect that, yeah, he's traded for Matthew Tkachuk, and they made that trade after Johnny Gaudreau left Calgary, and Calgary at that point was so desperate for a star, they were willing to give anyone who resembled like a big time hockey player, top of line money to stay and say, yeah, we love Calgary. And Jonathan Huberdeau, right place, right time. He was there to be more than happy to accept that bag. So shout out to number 11 there.
See what happens is Calgary, they're going to be the next team to get a new arena. So excited to see that in the next couple of years. Guy who is playing very well for Dallas down on their third line, Yevgeny Dadonov, who he fits in well on that line with Sagan and Ben.
Yeah, he does. And he's another one of these guys. He's just been on a bunch of pretty good teams the last few years as a role player. He was with Vegas the last couple of years. So feel like he's gonna be another one of those guys, because he's been around for a while now. I feel like it's almost like his time. Now he's not gonna be the old guy without a cup that was like the first one to get it after the captain gets it, but he'll be probably somewhere in like that top 10.
I think.
Oh yeah, Dadonov. We got to make sure he gets his lap.
We got let's see. We were talking about players in the province of Alberta. You got Ryan Nugent Hopkins right there.
He's slowly becoming one of those guys too, just because I mean, I know he's the former number 1 overall pick, but you go back how many years now? That was what, 2011, 2012 he went first overall, something like that. So you blink, your career just like flies by it really, really fast. So he's gonna be one of those guys after McDavid hoists it, and then Draisaitl, he'll probably be the next guy.
Now, the next guy we're going to get to here before we get to the few inserts and parallels in the pack, a guy who I would love to see at this year's 4th of July hot dog eating contest, giving Kobayashi and Joey Chestnut a problem, Mr. Phil Kessel.
I knew you were going Phil Kessel there. And yeah, shout out to Phil. We love Phil. Love the fact that he's kind of a weirdo, but a lovable weirdo. Love the fact he had that whole movie theater for one set up in his house. It was just the one chair by itself, which is just really funny. Love the fact he's a degenerate gambler, might be a little strong, but he's been known to show up at the WSOP events in Vegas during the World Series. So shout out to Phil. We love Phil.
He's the spirit animal of this show. I mean, we could even make him the mascot if you want.
We could, although we don't really have the money in the budget to pay Phil Kessel to be the mascot. Is the only thing.
I mean, he's welcome. We'll send him packs of cards he can rip. How about that?
Oh, I'm sure he'll be thrilled to do that in his spare time.
I'm sure. Sure. Okay, we got a few more cards to get here before we move on to baseball and basketball. First, we got our blue parallel MVP, Ryan O'Reilly there. And then former teammate Braden Shen from the Ice Battle set there. Now, this is a guy we talked about earlier in the show and is having a major impact on the Stars. And too bad I don't think this is a real autograph here, but it looks like one of the printed on ones. But Miro Heiskanen.
Yeah, that's one of those. That's not a real. Yeah, it's a facsimile. It's not a real autograph, unfortunately. But yeah, it's a cool card.
Now, how do you feel about giving the Conn Smythe to a defenseman? Because of the past few years, they've gotten some of them, but before that, there was very few and far between. So, team like Dallas, I could actually see Heiskanen getting it because there's if there's a standout performance from that team besides Wyatt Johnston, it's him.
Yeah, and like you said, they're few and far between, and they typically go to guys. If it goes to a defenseman, it's usually a guy who's either an offensive force or a guy who will play damn near 30 minutes a night. And Heiskanen is more of that latter type. I would say he's going to play 28 minutes a night for Dallas in their playoff games, and they need him to get to that next level because I would not be asking 38-year-old Ryan Suter to be playing a lot of tough minutes at this stage of his career, seeing as he could barely move.
It's another guy that deserves a cup right there, Ryan Suter. So there you go. Dallas, the feel-good story. And the last card of the pack, shout out Rob Pepitone here because he'll probably want this one. This is a Travis Konechny heart attack.
Yeah, I'd probably have a heart attack if I saw Travis Konechny winning the Hart Trophy, just because I would not be expecting that. But yeah, that's a nice reflective card there. I'm sure you could arrange a trade ski with our buddy Pepitone. We should probably get Pepitone on one of these shows just to shoot the shit with him.
I don't know, because he's big time now. He was on NBC News talking about the clusterfuck that is NJ Transit.
Was he?
Yeah, you go for when he texted it to me, I'm like, I always knew you would end up on the news talking about NJ Transit one day, and I'm surprised it took this long.
I'm surprised he made it before me because I was ranting about that long before he did. So that's really funny that you mentioned that. I had no idea he did that.
RC Pep 321, go find it. It's a quick appearance, but yeah, still nonetheless, I'm not surprised he's on there bashing NJ Transit. So there you go. There's our hockey pack for the day. You want me to just keep rolling with basketball, or do you want to break it up with some baseball?
No, I'll keep rolling with basketball because probably won't take us too long to go through that pack. And I got a lot of cards here with the baseball. I'd rather just run through them all.
There we go. All right, so we're gonna do one pack unless this is terrible, and then I got a second one. Yeah, we're going to the scissors. Womp womp.
Womp womp.
It's always like when you do that, like you feel like you're letting yourself down a little bit, you know? Like I wasn't.
Well, while you're doing that, I would just say, in regards to Rip N Riff, make sure you go on the Rip N Riff YouTube channel. Subscribe if you're not doing that already. I don't know the URL, but if you just search it, it'll pop up. Same thing with Rip N Riff on the various social media platforms like Twitter and X and whatever Elon's calling it nowadays.
All right, so we finally got the pack open. Let's see what we got here. So first out of the pack, NBA Hall of Famer Joe Dumars. Little car damage there, though. You could tell on the shorts.
Yeah, I was gonna say that with the short. I almost thought that with the ball for as well, but no. I guess it's supposed to be like NBA Jam. He's on fire.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, he was on fire a lot. He was a good player. Let's see here. We got Danny Manning, another from the LA Clippers there. Great NBA power forward of his time. We got Terry.
Do you think they ever asked Danny Manning to be on the Manning cast on ESPN?
No, why haven't they? I mean, he's a Manning. They could absolutely lean into him being like a lost Manning uncle or something like that. Like,
I think that'd be a bit of a stretch.
I think they could have fun with it. Peyton and Eli, they'd have a blast with that. Let's see here. We got Terry Mills pictured with the Nets. This next guy here, I mean, his great story is the Larry Bird story. When Craig Hodges was talking about the 3-point shooting contest, and he's like, you know where you can find me? And Larry Bird's like, yeah, at the end of the bench.
It's an all-time great line.
I mean, Why would you trash talk a guy that everybody knows is like the king of trash talk of his era? Like you're walking into the Lions Den, just like throwing rocks and covered in blood. Like, what do you think's gonna happen? We got a big.
I wish I was good enough at like anything to be able to trash talk at that level.
I mean, Larry Brown was just Larry Bird, just all-time great player and all-time great trash talker. We got Mark Eaton here, pictured with Utah Jazz. Love those old purple and yellow uniforms. Let's see here. We got the Timberwolves. You know, they've been rocking their old throwbacks there. There's Ty Corbin. Let's see here.
Shout out to Ty Corbin. Shout out to the Timberwolves and Anthony Edwards, who has basically become like the next big NBA shit talker, which we love to see.
I love that on the way out after Game 5. He's like, "I'll see you for Game 7" to the Denver staff in the arena. Like, I'm okay with brash trash talk as long as the guy goes out and backs it up. And Anthony Edwards is absolutely doing that right now.
He's one of the top players in the world for a reason, folks.
Got Byron Scott there going against the T-Wolves. We got Alvin Robertson from the Milwaukee Bucks. Kevin Gamble from the Celtics, Purvis Ellison from the Bullets. Now, you always want to pull a Michael Jordan card when you can, and here we go. I mean, I don't know, it's not going to be a high value card, but anytime you can get your hands on some Jordan, you want Jordan. So there you go.
How about that? Yeah, great moments from the. I guess this is from his first championship, 1981. So
beat the Lakers in 5.
Yep.
Not too many other good cards here. Let's just wrap this pack up quickly. We got Andre Turner with the Sixers, and I love those Nets jerseys. We got Chris Morris there with that baby blue Nets look. That nothing says early '90s crappy Nets like that jersey right there. And then,
by the way, speaking of Michael Jordan, did you see that how his cards were in the news this week?
No, I didn't.
So I forget where I saw this. I think this was on Mantel, where Michael Jordan's done that long-time NBA sponsorship, with Hanes.
That's right.
So I guess back in 2018, Hanes put out like an exclusive pack of Michael Jordan cards, and there's a limited edition of 10 of Michael Jordan autograph cards in that set that nobody's like ever found.
We need to find it. They're in underwear packs. We got to go find out.
They're underwear packs. So yeah, if you Google search, I'm sure like any 2018 Hanes underwear pack is probably been already accounted for on eBay. Or like they have the underwear, but they don't have the basketball cards. But yeah. So apparently, like these cards are like super valuable.
Well, I mean, if you ever needed motivation to buy new underwear, there it is. We got James Donaldson from the Mavericks, and to wrap up the pack there, Ricky Pierce. Sonics, my favorite. You know, I love the Sonics. That is, I hope they bring them back when they expand Seattle.
They will. They'll expand to Seattle and Vegas. I guess the only question is going to be is, are they going to let LeBron in on the ownership for Vegas? Because that's something he's been very vocal about. So we'll see. I mean, I'm sure that they're going to figure out expansion plans like as soon as this TV deal's done, which it sounds like their new national TV deal's going to be done in the next week or so. So
I feel like they're announcing it very soon. So and then once
and then from there, you know, to get an expansion team off the ground takes a year or two. So we shall see. But I think without further ado, let's go to the diamond. Let's talk some baseball.
Let's go some baseball.
Yeah, bring up the East Coast scam, and we are going to start here with me opening this pack, which would be very helpful. And I love the fact that these cards, just the big lettering on the side of who's in the pack. And we start with one of the great DHs of all time, Edgar Martinez. Unfortunately, he's in the field on this one. You want to see Edgar Martinez holding a bat, but
I mean, yeah. I mean, I forgot he even played third. I thought he had played first for a little bit there before he became the full-time DH. What I love about that 92 Fleer is teal was the color of the early 90s. You know, the starter jackets with the Sharks and the Hornets. Everybody loved that. And you get that nice border there. I mean, that's a classic look.
Classic looks. You got the logos on the top right as well. Dean Palmer, who was a pretty good player in his day. Well, one of the I don't want to say cornerstones of the Yankee dynasty, but he was on a bunch of those Yankee dynasty teams. Chuck Knobloch.
Before he got a case of the yips and couldn't throw a ball to first base, yeah.
Oh, other than that, he was fine.
I remember, and I believe he hit Keith Olbermann's mom with one of those errant throws.
I believe you are correct on that one. Pedro Guerrero from the St. Louis Cardinals.
Second best Guerrero from that era.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's Vladimir, and then there was also Wilton Guerrero as well. So,
Yeah, I still say Vlad, then Pedro. Even though Pedro was a little before Vlad, but
Joe Slusarski from the Oakland A's. First Yankee card of the pack, Mike Humphreys. Couldn't tell you anything about Mike Humphreys, even though he came up through their system. Player who was in the big leagues for a while as a utility player, Rafael Belliard.
Rafael Belliard, yeah, he was a key player on those Braves teams of the early '90s.
Yep, Alonzo Powell from your Seattle Mariners. Another Yankee here. We got Pat Kelly,
second base, but back when Mike Gallego was playing shortstop.
Yep. Oscar Azocar from your San Diego Padres.
Sure, he's got
we got our first insert card, and it's a good one. Fleer 1992 All-Stars, Ken Griffey Jr.
All right, now we're talking. That's what we're looking for in a pack like that. That's a good looking card.
Yeah, the sweetest swing in baseball.
That needs a penny sleeve. That one's gonna have to go. No, that may actually need a top loader.
Yep. We got Geronimo Pena from the Cardinals.
On that Griffey card, is the Griffey and gold inlaid in there? Is it like into the card at the top?
Let me take a closer look at this. I don't think it's inlaid. Let me try to. I think this might be a limited edition though. I don't know how well you can kind of see that there on the. It says on the back 23 of 24, but I think that might just be for the particular like that Flair All Star set. There's probably 24 different All Stars to be my guess.
So just so you know, I'm just a quick glance on eBay. That's going for $30 right now.
That's a $30 card. Oh, how about that?
I don't know if it's a $30 card, but somebody's trying to sell it for $30.
Somebody might be joined by somebody trying to sell it for $30 in as soon as the show's over.
Yeah.
Andre Dawson with the Cubs.
Great.
One of the all-time great relievers, Dennis Eckersley.
That's a good shot of Eckersley right there. Mid throw, chains all thrown about his neck. I like that.
Brian Hickerson from the San Francisco Giants. I'm sure Doggy could break down his career. Lee Stevens from the Angels. And last for them, this pack is from the Houston Astros, Jimmy Jones.
Jimmy Jones sounds like a bootleg sausage brand. Jimmy John's.
Yes, that's where Jimmy John's gets their sausage from. They get it from Jimmy Jones. All right, so let's go through the other pack real quick. I know you said that Roger Clemens card was that special insert, so I guess we can keep an eye out for that one as well.
Yeah, that Griffey pull was nice though.
Well, we start with a checklist, and it's back when cards would actually give you a checklist. So there you go.
Did you ever actually use the checklist as a kid? Like you would check them off on the card or no?
No, I never did because I would never buy like the same set of cards all the time. So it just seemed like it was
waste of
a
time.
way to get more, bilk you for more money. A prospects card here with Mike Linsky.
That was one of the main like subsets there, but not the guy we're looking for out of the prospect set.
Yep. Lance Johnson, pretty good leadoff hitter in his day with the Chicago White Sox. Ed Sprague, nice third baseman there with the Toronto Blue Jays.
I liked Ed Sprague. He was a good player.
Yeah, very solid player. Mike Fetters, pitcher for the Angels. The late great Darryl Kyle.
Late great Darryl Kyle, part of those Astro teams with Ken Caminetti and Craig Biggio and those guys.
Yep. And let's see, Juan Berenguer with the Atlanta Braves.
Remember him as well? Oh, I believe he's a bullpen guy.
We got a second checklist here. I'm not going to put it up there, but we do have another one.
That's what you want. Two checklists in a pack.
Yeah, they really want me to check those off. Pete O'Brien from the Mariners.
Few Mariners in this pack, and both packs actually. I love that old Mariners look, blue and yellow.
Yep, Kent Mercker from the Atlanta Braves.
Good fifth starter for them. No shame in being a five starter behind Smoltz, Avery, Glavine, those guys.
Charlie Huff from the Chicago White Sox.
He played a long time. I believe he finished with the Marlins at the end of his career.
Eddie Murray with your here picture with the Dodgers, but obviously he of the 500 home run club. I think he got there with the Orioles.
Mm-hmm.
We got a third checklist, so they really
Jeez.
wanted you to do the checklists off this pack. It's weird because we didn't get any checklists in the other pack, and this one there's 3 of them. Kurt Stillwell from the Kansas City Royals. Hall of Famer, which is always nice to see. Larry Walker here with the Expos.
Bring back the Expos.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to whenever MLB decides to expand, but I mean, I guess Montreal's on the short list. Jose Guzman from your Texas Rangers.
I think he pitched on the Blue Jays too for a bit.
And last but not least, a pretty good infielder in his era, Carlos Baerga with the Cleveland Indians.
Very good second fielder of his time. A big part of those Indians teams that were went to the World Series in '95 and were in the playoffs a lot.
Yeah, it was kind of at the end of the line once he finally got traded to the Mets back in like 2002, 2003, whenever that trade was. But
oh yeah,
overall, very nice packs and a very nice Ken Griffey Jr. card there. I'm gonna look at the back of this one real quick. What continue? It's like reading a novel. What continues to be baseball's best kept secret? Blah, 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 blah. Oh, they're playing the East Coast bias here on the back of this card.
Oh, why?
Nobody's watching baseball's next megastar because he plays in Seattle.
I mean, it's those 10 o'clock games on the East Coast can come late. But I think people found Ken Griffey Jr. pretty readily available once he started, becoming more of a household name.
Yep. So all in all, pretty solid packs of MLB cards there. Very happy with those.
Very happy with that. That was a good rip. Those were good packs today all around. We got some good hockey discussion there. The Skybox pack, anytime you get a Michael Jordan, that's good. And that Ken Griffey Jr. So we're at the price of admission today for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Now, we have gotten to the time in the show where it's time to play the starting lineup figure 5. But what sport are we going to do today? Let's find out.
The 1990 Collectors.
Jackson just made my collection because Bo knows baseball.
Will Clark, his lumber is lethal.
Mitchell, Grace, Mattingly, power hitters.
I like the guys I like, Canseco, man can smash the ball a mile.
Each sold separately, now with a rookie card. Starting lineup 1990, the Collector's Choice.
They're totally fresh.
They're slamming. They're jamming. They're bad.
That in there for the Magic Johnson at the end.
I love that. And I love the fact that you phrase it that way. And then you start off with Bo Jackson. It's like, oh, crap. Are we doing baseball or football today?
And plus that commercial. I mean, again, those starting lineup commercials is, I can remember seeing them on TV. But yes, we're doing a baseball one today. And without further ado, why does it always freeze? Jeez. Anyway, you may ask your first question.
Is this player in the Baseball Hall of Fame?
He sure is.
He sure is. You should probably take West Coast Rip Cam and move the figure off of that just because I can't see who it is well enough in there. But I don't want to provide any spoilers there. All right, so he is a Hall of Famer. Has this player won a World Series?
He has won a World Series.
Did this player ever win an MVP award?
He won a World Series MVP. Yes.
Interesting that there. But he never won like the league MVP.
No. If you ask the right question, you'll know why.
Won a World Series. Is this player an infielder?
No.
He's an outfielder. Okay. Well, not necessarily an outfielder, but he's not an infielder.
Other positions on the field as well.
Yes, thank you. Well aware of that. Um, I sort of have an idea where I want to go with this question. I'm trying to think of the funniest way to phrase this question.
Okay.
I don't want to waste the question on this though. Did this player share his World Series MVP award with somebody who has made a name for himself in his post-playing career for his right-wing rants and other political propaganda and launching a failed video game company?
If you're asking if he shared his World Series MVP with that player, then the answer is yes.
Then is this player Randy Johnson?
Yes, it is. It is absolutely Randy Johnson. There you go.
The big unit.
Now, what led you in that direction to go? Because like when you were starting to be like, what am I going to waste a question? I thought you were going to ask, did this person ever destroy a bird with a pitch in his career? That's where I thought you were going.
No, I was not going there with that. But when you said World Series MVP and not regular season MVP, that kind of narrowed the field a little bit. And then you put the other context clues together, and you know, I try to stick with the 90s of, or generally speaking, like players who played primarily in the 90s. I know he won that World Series MVP in 2001, but for the most part, yeah, that's just sort of where I was going with that. And I'm not sure who I would have guessed if you had said no. Because when I asked the infielder question, I was like, "Oh, is it Derek Jeter again?"
Well, that's why when like you're like, "Oh, but there's no MVPs." Like if you had to ask if it was a pitcher, because the pitchers rarely get the MVP. He's a 5-time Cy Young winner, but I didn't want to volunteer that information when you asked
Right,
MVP.
as you shouldn't have. But I think the fact that you said as much as you did kind of gave away it might have been a pitcher.
I mean, I kind of want to open these things too, so you know, I don't mind leading you a little bit, but you're both the schneid. You got one back after the last couple of weeks being a little bit off there. So we go. Good to be back. And now we got Randy Johnson pictured there in the teal Mariners jersey.
Surprised I didn't pull a Randy Johnson card today with all these other Mariners we got.
No kidding, right? And then we know the one thing I'm always a fan of is if the pose matches the card, which you kind of have that going for you right there. Maybe not the jersey, but the long hair, the mullet flowing as he's mid windup. I mean, you can't really do much better than that in terms of matching it.
Very tiny glove there.
Yeah, you're right. I mean,
the ball's bigger than his glove, which not exactly the best, I guess, molding. I guess they used for the plastic or the paint job or whatever they did there. But yeah, shout out to Randy Johnson, a player who my mother hated because she was like, he's so ugly. I hate watching him.
Hey, you know, I mean, we all have our reasons to like and dislike guys, and that's, you know, and he was a jerk when he came to the Yankees too. Remember, didn't he punch a camera? And I coincidentally now he's a camera guy. Now he's a photographer.
Yeah, he shut the cameraman when he got to New York. So, and he didn't last in New York very long, just a couple of years before they traded him back to Arizona. So, it is what it is.
He does not strike me as a guy who would enjoyed living in New York at all.
No, I mean, it also didn't help that the Yankees traded for him at the end of his career. Like, it would have been nice if they had him like 10 years earlier, but you know, you can't control what you can't control. So,
I mean, maybe he could have been part of that Jay Buhner trade that Frank Costanza likes to rehash, but you know, what are you going to do? But there you go. Randy Johnson. He's going to join our starting lineup studio audience, which is an all Eastern Conference and Western Conference Finals edition there. We got John Van Beesbrook, 1995 Collectors Club edition. We got Mark Messier from the 94 line, Eddie Belfour from the 98 line, and then Wayne Gretzky there from the 1998 Canadian version of the freeze frame Gretzky special line there. So there you go. And Randy will join the studio audience next week. You'll have to find out who else is going to be hanging out with Randy while we rip some packs of cards. There we go.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
It was a good show today. We got a nice hit out of each pack. We appreciate you for tuning in. And don't forget, we'll be back with you same time next week here on Rip N Riff. And don't forget, Total Hockey Now, new episode up with myself, Anthony Rivera, and Christopher Murray. Jared's work about the Devils, all about the jersey.com. I'm sure they're going to be all over that Sheldon Keefe signing. And of course, if you're a fan of poker, Jared's got some great poker content up at his YouTube page at Jared Moore Poker. But for at Mr. Jared Moore, I am at Pucking Thoughts Adam Bernard. We'll be back with you next Wednesday with another episode of R&R on the R&R Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook network. Thanks, everybody.